The Valaran Dominion had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their ships were beautiful and deadly, moving between worlds like silver arrows cutting through the darkness of space. They had conquered more than 10,000 planets. Every species they met had bowed before them. Every world they touched became theirs. Fleet Commander Talos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that moved with grace. His species had evolved to be perfect rulers. At least, that was what they believed. "Commander," his scout officer said, "we have found a new world. A small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. There is intelligent life." Talos looked at the data on his screen. The planet was called Earth by its people. They called themselves humans. He studied the images of their cities, their vehicles, their technology. "How advanced are they?" he asked. "Primitive, Commander. They have only recently achieved space travel. Their fastest ships take months to reach their nearest planets. Their weapons are simple kinetic devices that throw metal at each other." Talos made a sound that was like laughter. "And their military strength?" "They have many nations, Commander. They fight among themselves constantly. Their world is divided into hundreds of different groups. They cannot even agree on a single government." This made Talos smile. A divided species was a weak species. This was the easiest kind of conquest. These humans would fall within days, perhaps hours. "Send the standard message," Talos ordered. "Give them 30 rotations to surrender." The message was transmitted across all frequencies. It reached every radio, every television, every phone on the planet Earth. The message was simple and cold. "People of Earth, you have been discovered by the Valaran Dominion. Your world and all its resources now belong to us. You have 30 of your days to surrender completely. Accept our rule or face total destruction. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy." On Earth, the world stopped. In New York, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Every nation sent their representatives. For the first time in history, every country on Earth was looking at the same problem. They were not alone in the universe. And whoever was out there wanted to enslave them. Ambassador Park Yuna of South Korea stood before the assembly. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen many crises. But nothing like this. "We have all heard the message," she said. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was racing. "An alien empire has demanded our surrender. They have given us 30 days. The room erupted in noise. Some representatives were shouting about military response. Others were talking about negotiation. A few looked like they wanted to hide. Park Yuna raised her hand for silence. "They call us primitive," she continued. "They think we are weak because we argue among ourselves. Because we have different nations, different languages, different beliefs." She paused and looked around the room. "They are wrong." She pressed a button, and images appeared on the screen behind her. Images from human history. Wars and disasters. Plagues and famines. Cities burning and being rebuilt. People suffering and surviving. "We have survived ice ages," she said. "We have survived diseases that killed half our population. We have survived wars that destroyed entire continents. And every time, we came back stronger." She pointed at the sky. "They think our differences make us weak. But our differences are our strength. We have been competing with each other for thousands of years. We have been fighting, learning, adapting. Every nation in this room has faced extinction and survived. Every culture here has been tested by fire." The room was silent now. Everyone was listening. "They have never faced a species like us," Park Yuna said. "They have conquered races that gave up easily. Races that valued peace above all else. They do not know what humans are capable of when we are pushed. In the back of the room, a man in a military uniform nodded slowly. His name was Kim Do-eun, a colonel in the South Korean army. He had spent his entire career preparing for wars he hoped would never come. Now the biggest war in human history was about to begin. After the meeting, Park Yuna met with military leaders from every major nation. They gathered in a secret room beneath the United Nations building. What she told them changed everything. "We have been preparing for this," she said. "Not this exactly, but something like it. For 60 years, we have had a secret program. Every major nation has contributed. We have built things that the public does not know about." She showed them files marked with the highest security clearances. Files about ships hidden on the dark side of the moon. Weapons developed in secret laboratories. A fleet of warships that had been waiting in the shadows of the solar system. "We always knew we might not be alone," Park Yuna explained. "We always knew that whoever was out there might not be friendly. So we prepared, quietly, together." Colonel Kim Do-eun looked at the files with wide eyes. "How many ships do we have?" 37 warships, 200 smaller vessels. And we have bases on Mars, Europa, and in the asteroid belt." The room was silent as this information sank in. "It is not enough to defeat them," Park Yuna admitted. "Their fleet has thousands of ships. But it is enough to fight. Enough to make them bleed. Enough to show them that humans do not surrender." In Seoul, Colonel Kim Do-eun returned to his command. He gathered his most trusted soldiers and told them what was coming. Some were afraid. Most were angry. All of them were ready. "They think we are primitive," Kim Do-eun told his troops. "They think we will break easily. They have never studied our history. They do not know about the wars we have fought, the sieges we have survived, the enemies we have defeated against impossible odds." He looked at each of his soldiers in turn. "We will show them what primitive means. We will show them what humans do when someone threatens our home." In Houston, Texas, a scientist named Lee Suji received a call she had been waiting for her entire life. She was 45 years old and had spent 20 years working on projects that officially did not exist. Now those projects were about to become very real. "It is time," the voice on the phone said. "Wake up the fleet." Lee Suji smiled grimly. "Understood." She walked into a facility hidden beneath the Texas desert. Inside were control systems for ships that the world thought were impossible. Ships with engines that could cross the solar system in days instead of months. Ships with weapons that could punch through any armor. In orbit around Earth, the Valoran fleet waited. Fleet Commander Talus watched the planet below with boredom. He expected the humans to surrender within a week. Maybe two. They always did. "Commander," his officer said, "the humans are not responding to our message. They have not sent any communication at all." Talus frowned. This was unusual. Most species begged for mercy immediately, or they tried to negotiate. The silence was strange. "They are probably still arguing among themselves," he said. "Give them time. Their fear will grow. They will surrender." But deep in his mind, something felt wrong. He looked at the blue planet below and felt a small chill run through his body. He told himself it was nothing. He was wrong. On Earth, humanity was not arguing. For the first time in history, every nation was working together in perfect silence. They were preparing, planning, building. The Valorans had made a mistake. They had given humans 30 days. That was 29 days too many. The Valoran ground forces landed on the Korean peninsula on the 15th day. Fleet Commander Talus had grown tired of waiting. The humans had not surrendered. They had not even responded. So he decided to teach them a lesson. 20 massive assault carriers descended from the clouds. They were each the size of a small city, blocking out the sun as they came down. Energy weapons fired from their cannons, turning military bases into melted glass. Tanks exploded. Buildings collapsed. Thousands died in the first hour. The Valorans expected the humans to run, to scream, to beg for mercy. Instead, the humans disappeared. Colonel Kim Do-eun had evacuated the cities 3 days before the attack. He knew the aliens would come. He knew they would strike hard. So he moved everyone who could fight into the mountains, into the forests, into the tunnels that had been built during the last war on this land 70 years ago. Let them have the empty cities, he told his soldiers. Let them think they have won. Then we will show them what war really means. The Valoran ground commander was named Varak. He was a veteran of 40 conquests. He had never lost a battle. As his troops spread across the peninsula, he felt confident. The humans were hiding like animals. This would be over soon. On the 3rd day of occupation, Varak lost his first soldier. A single shot from a distant mountain. The Valoran trooper fell without a sound. His comrades looked around in confusion. They could not see where the shot came from. Their sensors showed nothing. Find the shooter, Varak ordered. They searched for 6 hours. They found nothing. That night, they lost 12 more soldiers. Silent shots from impossible distances. No warnings. No sounds. Just death. Kim Do-eun watched from his hidden position in the mountains. His snipers were the best in the world. They had trained for years to hit targets at extreme ranges. The Valorans had better technology, but they had never faced enemies like this. They do not understand guerrilla warfare, Kim Do-eun said to his officers. They have conquered species that fight in open battles. Species that surrender when their armies are defeated. They do not know how to fight shadows. A young medic named Choi Minji listened carefully. She was 28 years old, trained as a doctor, but now serving with the resistance. Her job was to keep the fighters alive, to patch their wounds, to give them the strength to keep going. How long can we hold them? She asked. Kim Do-eun looked at her with tired eyes. As long as we need to. We are not trying to win the ground war. We are trying to make them bleed. Every soldier they lose here is one less soldier fighting somewhere else. The Valorans did not understand what was happening. In their entire history, they had never faced resistance like this. Conquered species either surrendered or died quickly. They did not hide in forests and strike from shadows. They did not blow up supply convoys with homemade explosives. They did not disappear into the ground like ghosts. Ground Commander Varak requested reinforcements. Then he requested more reinforcements. His daily reports to Fleet Commander Talus became increasingly desperate. These humans are different, he reported. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They attack and then vanish. They use the land itself as a weapon. Our sensors cannot find them. Our superior firepower means nothing when we cannot see our enemy. Talus read the reports with growing anger. How could primitives cause so much trouble? He ordered Varak to burn the forests, to level the mountains, to destroy everything until there was nowhere left to hide. The Valorans began their scorched earth campaign. Entire forests were turned to ash. Mountains were blasted apart. Villages that had stood for centuries were erased from existence. The humans kept fighting. Choi Minji worked day and night in underground hospitals. She treated burns, bullet wounds, broken bones. She held the hands of dying soldiers and promised them their sacrifice meant something. She had not slept more than 3 hours at a time in weeks. One night, Valoran soldiers found the tunnel she was using to transport wounded fighters. They captured her and brought her to Ground Commander Varak himself. Varak looked at the small human woman with contempt. She was covered in dirt and blood. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. But she was not crying. She was not begging. She was smiling. "Why do you smile?" Varric demanded. "You have lost. Your people are being destroyed. Your world will fall." Choi Minji looked up at the alien commander. He was twice her height, covered in armor, surrounded by guards. She should have been terrified. She was not. "You do not understand," she said. "This is what we do. We have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have survived invasions, occupations, and genocides. We have been conquered before, and we have always risen again." She laughed softly. "You think you are the first empire to try to break us? You are not even the 100th. And we are still here." Varric felt something he had never felt before. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. He ordered her executed. But that night, before the execution could happen, resistance fighters attacked the base. They came from tunnels that the Valorans did not know existed. They killed 40 soldiers and freed Choi Minji along with a dozen other prisoners. Kim Do-han was waiting for her at the extraction point. "Welcome back," he said simply. She nodded, too tired to speak. Then she went back to work. They were wounded to treat. There was a war to win. By the end of the first month, the Valorans had lost over 3,000 ground troops. They controlled the cities, but the cities were empty. They held the plains, but the plains were useless. The mountains belonged to the humans. The forests belonged to the humans. The night itself seemed to belong to the humans. Fleet Commander Talus made a decision. If he could not defeat the humans on the ground, he would destroy them from above. He ordered massive bombardment of civilian areas. If the humans would not surrender, he would kill them all. The first bombs fell on Seoul, then Tokyo, then Beijing. Millions died in the first wave of attacks. But the humans did not surrender. Instead, something changed. In secret facilities around the world, lights came on. Engines powered up. Ships that the world had never seen began to rise from hidden bases. In orbit around Earth, Valoran sensors detected movement. Something was coming from the dark side of the moon. From Mars, from the asteroid belt. Fleet Commander Talus stared at his display in confusion. "That is impossible," he said. "The humans do not have ships. They are primitive." His sensor officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, I am detecting 37 large vessels, 200 smaller craft. They are approaching at speeds we did not think the humans could achieve." On the bridge of the Resolve, Dr. Lee Suji looked at the Valoran fleet ahead. Her ship was smaller than theirs, less advanced, but it had been built with human determination, human creativity, human rage. "All ships," she transmitted. "This is Fleet Command. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. Today we show these invaders what humanity is capable of." She paused. "Today we fight back." On the ground, Kim Do-han received word of what was happening in space. He gathered his exhausted soldiers and told them the news. "Our fleet has revealed itself," he said. "The battle for Earth is truly beginning. What we do here matters. Every soldier we kill, every supply line we cut, helps our ships above. We are not just fighting for Korea. We are fighting for every human who has ever lived." His soldiers raised their weapons. They were tired. They were wounded. They were outnumbered. But they were not defeated. Not even close. The Valorans had called them primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The world had believed that humans were only beginning to explore space. They thought the moon landings were our greatest achievement. They assumed we had nothing beyond chemical rockets and fragile space stations. They were very, very wrong. Dr. Lee Suji stood on the bridge of the Resolve and remembered the day she learned the truth. She had been 25 years old, a brilliant physicist working at a university in Bizen. One day, men in dark suits came to her office. They showed her files that changed everything she believed about her species. For 60 years, the nations of Earth had maintained a secret. While they argued in public, while they threatened each other with nuclear weapons, while they pretended to be enemies, they had been working together on something far more important: the secret space program. It started in the 1960s, when scientists from America and the Soviet Union realized they were not alone. They had detected signals from deep space, signals that could only come from intelligent life. The two superpowers, locked in a Cold War, made a secret agreement. Whatever was out there might be dangerous. Humanity needed to prepare. Money flowed into hidden projects. Scientists from rival nations worked together in secret facilities. Technology advanced in ways the public never saw. Fusion engines, advanced materials, weapons that could destroy starships. By 2020, humanity had a fleet. Not a large fleet, not a powerful fleet by galactic standards, but a fleet nonetheless. The hardest part was keeping it secret, Lee Suji told her crew as they approached the Valoran blockade. Every nation had to agree. Every government had to keep quiet. For 60 years, humanity's greatest achievement remained hidden. Her weapons officer, a young man named Han Junwoo, checked his systems one more time. "Doctor, the Valoran fleet outnumbers us 10 to 1. Our shields are weaker. Our engines are slower. How do we win?" Lee Suji smiled. It was not a happy smile. "We do not need to be stronger," she said. "We need to be more willing to die." The human fleet split into 3 groups. Lee Suji commanded the center. The left wing was led by Captain Baek Ji-won, a former naval officer with 30 years of experience. The right wing was commanded by Colonel Song Tae-yeon, who had spent his career in the Air Force, dreaming of flying among the stars. They faced a Valoran fleet of 400 ships. The aliens had energy shields that could absorb nuclear blasts. They had weapons that could cut through steel like paper. They had 12,000 years of military experience. The humans had something else: desperation, creativity, and a complete disregard for their own survival. Fleet Commander Talus watched the primitive ships approach. He was almost amused. These tiny vessels thought they could challenge the Dominion? It would be like insects attacking a giant. "Destroy them," he ordered casually. "This will be quick." The Valoran ships opened fire. Energy beams crossed the void, aimed at the approaching human fleet. They expected the primitive ships to be destroyed instantly. The first surprise came when the beams missed. The human ships were using stealth technology that the Valorans had never encountered. Not invisibility, exactly, but electronic warfare that confused Valoran targeting systems. The beams struck empty space while the human ships kept coming. "Adjust targeting," Talus ordered, his voice slightly less confident. "Manual control." Before his gunners could respond, the humans fired. The Valorans had never seen nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers. They had never encountered kinetic missiles traveling at half the speed of light. They had never imagined that anyone would build weapons so brutal, so destructive, so completely insane. The first Valoran ship exploded. Then the second. Then the third. Captain Baek Ji-won led her squadron directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. Her ship, the Defiance, was already damaged. Energy burns marked its hull. 2 of her crew were dead. She did not slow down. "All ships," she transmitted, "pick your targets and fire everything. Do not stop. Do not retreat. Make every shot count." Her ship launched its final missile. It was a special weapon, designed specifically for this moment. The missile carried a nuclear warhead wrapped in special materials. When it detonated near a Valoran carrier, it released a focused beam of pure radiation that burned through the alien shields. The carrier exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth. Big Ji-wan did not celebrate. She was already targeting the next ship. On the Valoran flagship, Fleet Commander Talus watched his ships die. His confident expression was gone. In its place was something close to panic. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are primitive. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours." His tactical officer struggled to explain. "Commander, their weapons are crude but extremely powerful. They seem to be using nuclear and kinetic technologies in ways we never considered. Our shields were not designed to stop this kind of attack. Then adapt. Find a solution." But there was no time to adapt. The humans kept coming. When their ships were damaged, they did not retreat. They accelerated toward the nearest enemy vessel and rammed it, sacrificing themselves to take out one more target. Colonel Song Tae-yun's ship was crippled early in the battle. His engines were destroyed. His weapons were offline. Most of his crew was dead. He had two options: surrender or die uselessly. He chose a third option. "All remaining crew," he announced calmly, "abandon ship. I am taking manual control." His surviving crew members escaped in emergency pods. Song Tae-yun pointed his dying ship at the nearest Valoran cruiser. He had just enough power left for one final burst of acceleration. "For Earth," he said quietly. Then he fired the engines. The collision destroyed both ships. Colonel Song Tae-yun died instantly. But so did 300 Valoran soldiers. Dr. Lee Suji watched it happen from the Resolve. She blinked away tears and kept fighting. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 40 Valoran warships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 12 ships and over 2,000 lives. It was not a victory. Not really. The Valarans still had overwhelming numbers. But it was something far more important. It was proof that they could bleed. Fleet Commander Talus retreated to reorganize. He could not understand what had happened. The primitives should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, they had fought like demons. They had sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They had refused to accept defeat even when defeat was certain. He sent a message to the Valoran homeworld requesting reinforcements. In his report, he wrote something that had never appeared in Dominion military records before. "These humans are dangerous. They do not fight like other species. They do not value their own lives. They will die to hurt us. I recommend extreme caution." On Earth, people looked up at the sky. They could see the flashes of distant explosions. They knew their ships were fighting. They knew their people were dying. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, they felt hope. Ambassador Park Yuna addressed the United Nations again. Her voice was raw with emotion. "We have proven that we can fight," she said. "We have proven that we will not surrender. Now we must prove that we can win." She looked at the representatives from every nation. This is no longer about countries or borders or old arguments. This is about survival. This is about showing the universe that humanity will not go quietly into the night. In the mountains of Korea, Colonel Kim Do-eun heard news of the space battle. He gathered his fighters and told them what had happened. "Our people are dying up there," he said. "Pilots and soldiers and scientists. They are giving their lives so that we have a chance. We owe it to them to keep fighting down here." Choi Minji nodded. She had not slept in 3 days. Her hands were still stained with the blood of wounded soldiers. But she stood straight. "We will keep fighting," she said, "until our last breath." The war was far from over. The Valorans still had thousands of ships. They still had resources that dwarfed anything humanity possessed. But something had changed. The humans had shown they could fight. Now they needed to show they could win. The war lasted 3 years. Every expert in the Valoran Dominion said it should have been over in weeks. The humans were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Their technology was primitive. Their resources were limited to a single solar system. By every logical calculation, they should have been crushed. But the Valorans had never encountered logic like human logic. In the first year, the humans learned. They captured Valoran ships and took them apart piece by piece. Dr. Lee Suji led teams of scientists who studied alien technology day and night. They could not match Valoran engineering, but they could adapt it, improve it, make it their own. Human ships became faster. Human weapons became deadlier. Human shields became stronger. They learned too quickly. A Valoran admiral complained to his commanders, "We have spent 12,000 years developing our technology. These primitives are catching up in months." The humans had something the Valorans did not. They had competition. For thousands of years, human nations had been racing against each other. They had built weapons to fight each other. They had developed technologies to outdo each other. Every scientist on Earth had spent their career trying to be better than their rivals. Now all that competition was focused on a single enemy. Captain Beek Jiwan, now promoted to admiral, commanded the growing human fleet. She had survived the first battle. She had watched Colonel Song Taeum sacrifice himself. She had sworn to make his death mean something. "We cannot beat them with numbers," she told her officers. "We cannot beat them with technology, but we can beat them with will, with creativity, with the thing humans do better than anyone else in the universe." "What is that, Admiral?" her aide asked. Beek Jiwan smiled grimly. "We adapt. We survive. We refuse to die." In the second year, Park Yuna had an idea. She was no longer just an ambassador. She was the director of United Earth Resistance, the leader of humanity's fight for survival. And she understood something important. The Valorans had conquered thousands of species. That meant thousands of species were living under their rule. Billions of beings who had been enslaved for generations. What if those beings could be convinced to fight back? She recorded a message and transmitted it on every frequency the humans could access. It was translated into every alien language they had learned. The message was simple. "You are not alone. You can fight. We will show you how." The first responses came from a species called the Tholari. They were small, reptilian creatures who had been conquered 8,000 years ago. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. But something in the human message woke an old memory. A Tholari worker on a mining planet received the transmission. Her name was Keshi. She had spent her entire life serving Valoran masters. She had never questioned her place. But when she heard the human voice telling her she could be free, something changed inside her. She started talking to other workers. Quietly, carefully, she shared the human message. She asked questions that had not been asked in generations. Why do we serve them? Why do we accept their rule? What if we said no? On 1,000 worlds, similar conversations began. The Valorans had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten what rebellion looked like. They were not prepared. On Earth, the ground war continued. Colonel Kim Don, now a general, had trained resistance fighters from every nation. They used tactics from human history, guerrilla warfare from Vietnam, insurgency methods from Afghanistan, resistance techniques from World War II. "We have been fighting each other for 10,000 years," he taught his soldiers. "We know every way to hurt an enemy, every way to hide, every way to survive. The Valorans have never faced anything like us." Choi Minji had become more than a medic. She was now a symbol. The woman who had been captured, who had laughed at her captors, who had escaped and returned to fighting. Young resistance fighters told her story to each other. If she could survive, so could they. She was 31 years old now. The war had aged her. Her hair was streaked with gray. Her hands were scarred from countless surgeries performed in underground hospitals. But her eyes still burned with determination. "We keep fighting because we must," she told new recruits. "We keep fighting because surrender means death. Not just for us, but for everyone who comes after us." By the third year, something amazing had happened. The human fleet had grown from 37 ships to 200. Some were newly built. Others were captured Valoran vessels, repaired and modified by human engineers. And some were crewed by aliens. The Tholari rebellion had spread. Other species had joined. A coalition was forming, led by the humans who had dared to resist. Fleet Commander Talus received report after report of uprisings across the Dominion. A transport ship hijacked here. A factory sabotaged there. Guards killed. Prisoners freed. Communications disrupted. "This is their doing," he said, staring at a map of the spreading chaos. "The humans. They are infecting our empire with their madness." He was right. Park Yuna had sent more than messages. She had sent human advisors to every rebellion that requested help. Soldiers who taught guerrilla tactics. Engineers who showed how to sabotage Valoran equipment. Leaders who reminded enslaved species that they had once been free. "We cannot win this war alone," Park Yuna told the United Nations. "But we are not alone anymore. Every species that rises against the Dominion is fighting alongside us. Every rebellion distracts the enemy and weakens their grip." The Valoran High Council met in emergency session on their homeworld. The mood was desperate. Their mighty empire was starting to crack. "How has this happened?" the Elder Prime demanded. They were one primitive species on one small planet. "How are they destroying us?" The chief historian stepped forward. He had spent 3 years studying human culture. What he had learned terrified him. "They have a concept," he explained. "They call it spite. It means doing something harmful to an enemy, even if it harms yourself. They would rather die than surrender. They would rather burn their own cities than let us have them." He showed them images from human history. Wars that lasted for decades. Sieges where defenders ate their own dead rather than give up. Soldiers who charged into certain death rather than retreat. "We have conquered species that value survival," the historian continued. "The humans do not. They value something else. Something they call freedom. They believe there are things worth dying for, worth killing for, worth destroying everything for." The Elder Prime was silent for a long moment. "Can we destroy them? Completely? Perhaps. But it would require resources we no longer have. The rebellions across our territory are spreading. If we focus on Earth, we lose control elsewhere. If we focus elsewhere, the humans grow stronger. Then what do you suggest?" The historian looked old and tired. "I do not know. In 12,000 years, we have never faced anything like this. The humans have changed everything." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Beek Jiwan received word that the largest Valoran fleet ever assembled was approaching. Over 3,000 warships. The Dominion was sending everything they had left. One final push to crush the rebellion at its source. Beek Jiwan looked at her own fleet. 800 ships. Not enough to win. Maybe enough to fight. She opened a channel to every ship under her command. Human ships. Tholari ships. Ships crewed by a dozen different species who had once been slaves. "They are coming," she said. "The largest fleet the Dominion has ever sent. They think they can crush us. They think they can end this." She paused. "They are wrong. We have something they never had. We have hope. We have each other. We have the thing that humans do best. What is that? A Thalari captain asked. Admiral Big G1 smiled. We survive. No matter the cost. No matter the odds. We survive, and we keep fighting. The fleet prepared for the final battle. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would be decided in the hours ahead. The Battle of Sol was the largest space battle in galactic history. 3,000 Valoran warships emerged from hyperspace near Earth. They were the finest ships the Dominion had ever built. They carried the most experienced crews in the Empire. They had one simple mission: destroy humanity once and for all. Fleet Commander Talus stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet below. The little blue world that had caused so much trouble. The primitive species that had somehow set his empire on fire. Today it ends, he said. No mercy. No prisoners. Kill them all. Admiral Big G1 watched the enemy fleet arrive. 800 ships against 3,000. The odds were worse than any battle they had fought before. But she did not feel fear. She felt calm. She had accepted death years ago. Every human fighter had. That was their greatest weapon. All ships, she transmitted. You know the plan. You know what is at stake. Today, we fight for everyone who cannot fight for themselves. Today, we show the universe what humanity really is. Beside her stood General Kim Do-eun. He had come up from Earth to fight in the final battle. His guerrilla war on the ground was won. The Valorans had been driven from the surface months ago. Now he wanted to see the end. Are you ready? Big G1 asked him. He nodded. I have been ready for 3 years. Let us finish this. Dr. Lee Suji was in the engineering section. She had spent the last 6 months working on a special weapon. Something that could turn the tide of the battle. She just needed to get close enough to use it. The weapon is ready, she reported. But we need to be within 20,000 kilometers of the enemy flagship to activate it. 20,000 kilometers. That meant flying through the heart of the enemy fleet. Most ships that tried would be destroyed before they got halfway. Admiral Big G1 smiled. Then we will get you there. Whatever it takes. The battle began. The human fleet did not form defensive lines. They attacked immediately, splitting into dozens of small groups that hit the Valoran formation from every direction. It was chaos by design. Captain Oh Soyoung led a squadron of fast attack ships directly into the enemy center. Her ships were small and quick. They could not survive a direct hit, but they could dodge and weave between the massive Valoran warships. Target their communications, she ordered. Blind them. Her ships launched missiles at Valoran sensor arrays and communication dishes. They could not destroy the big ships, but they could confuse them. Make them slow. Give the heavy ships time to strike. Fleet Commander Talus watched in frustration as the primitives swarmed around his fleet like angry insects. His ships were dying, but not fast enough. He still had the numbers. He just needed to find the enemy flagship and destroy it. Focus all fire on their command ship, he ordered. Kill their leader, and the rest will fall. But the humans had planned for this. Admiral Big G1 had spread her command across multiple ships. If one was destroyed, another would take over. There was no single target to kill. In the chaos of battle, the Resolve made its way toward the Valoran flagship. Dr. Lee Suji monitored her weapons' power levels. They were almost there. 10 more minutes, she reported. Keep them busy for 10 more minutes. General Kim Do-eun took command of the ship's weapons. He had spent his life fighting on the ground. Now he was fighting among the stars. It felt strange, but the principles were the same. Hit them where they are weak, he said. Engines, sensors, command bridges. Make it every shot count. The Resolve took hit after hit. Fires broke out on 3 decks. Crew members died at their stations. But the ship kept moving forward. On Earth, Park Yuna watched the battle from the United Nations building. The entire world was watching. Billions of people holding their breath, waiting to see if humanity would survive. "They are so close," she whispered. "Come on. Come on." Choi Minji stood beside her. The medic had refused to stay in the hospitals. She wanted to be here, with the leaders, when the fate of Earth was decided. "They will make it," she said. "They have to." In space, the Resolve reached the designated range. Dr. Lee Suji activated her weapon. It was based on Valoran technology, but humans had changed it, improved it, made it something the Dominion had never seen. A massive electromagnetic pulse, amplified through satellites that human engineers had secretly placed throughout the system. The pulse was not designed to destroy. It was designed to disable. Every Valoran ship within range suddenly went dark. Their shields failed. Their weapons stopped. Their engines died. 3,000 warships became floating metal tombs. Fleet Commander Talus stared at his dark screens in disbelief. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows across his face. "What happened?" he demanded. "What did they do?" There was no answer. His crew was scrambling to restore power. But human ships were already surrounding them, weapons aimed and ready. Admiral Baek Ji-won's voice echoed through the Valoran flagship's emergency speakers. The humans had hacked into their communication system. "Fleet Commander Talus," she said, "your ships are disabled. Your weapons are offline. You have two choices. Surrender or die." Talus felt something break inside him. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had never lost. Until now. "How?" he whispered. "You were primitive. You were nothing." Baek Ji-won's voice was calm. "You measured us by our technology, by how fast our ships could fly, by how powerful our weapons were. You never understood that civilization is not about technology. It is about will, about sacrifice, about how far a people will go to protect what they love." She paused. "Your empire conquered through fear. Ours was built through fire. You thought our conflicts made us weak. They made us strong. Every war we fought taught us something. Every disaster we survived made us harder. You were right that we are primitive, but you were wrong about what that means." Fleet Commander Talus lowered his head. "I surrender," he said quietly. It took 6 hours to capture the entire Valoran fleet. Human and allied ships boarded each vessel, taking prisoners and securing weapons. Not a single Valoran ship escaped. On Earth, the news spread across the world. People poured into the streets, crying and laughing and holding each other. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. Park Yuna addressed the United Nations one final time. Her voice was rough with emotion. 3 years ago, they called us primitive. They expected us to bow, to break, to die quietly. She took a deep breath. They did not understand what we are. We are the species that survived ice ages with nothing but fire and stubbornness. We are the species that went to the moon because someone said it was impossible. We are the species that never, ever stops fighting." She smiled. "Today, an empire falls. Not because we are stronger, not because we are more advanced, but because we refuse to be conquered. The Valoran Dominion collapsed within a decade. The rebellions that humans had started spread across their entire territory. Species that have been enslaved for thousands of years rose up and demanded freedom. Humanity did not try to build an empire of their own. Instead, they helped form an alliance, a coalition of free worlds that worked together by choice, not by force. General Kim Do-hyun returned to Korea. He was old now, tired, but satisfied. He walked through the mountains where he had fought the Valorans years ago. The forests had grown back. The land had healed. Choi Minji walked beside him. She was a doctor again, helping rebuild what the war had destroyed. "We did it," he said quietly. "We did," she agreed. "Though I do not think they ever understood why." He smiled. "They called us primitive because we fight among ourselves. Because we are messy and divided and complicated." He looked up at the sky, where human ships now traveled freely among the stars. "They never understood that our chaos is our greatest strength, that our differences make us whole." On the bridge of the Resolve, Dr. Lee Suji and Admiral Baek Ji-won shared a bottle of soju. They looked out at the stars that were now open to humanity. "What do we do now?" Lee Suji asked. Baek Ji-won thought about the question. "We explore. We learn. We meet other species and treat them as equals, not as subjects." She raised her glass. "We show the galaxy what humanity really is. And what is that?" Baek Ji-won drank and smiled. "Stubborn, dangerous, kind, complicated, primitive." She looked at the stars. "And proud of it. In the records of the galactic community, the war would be known as the Fall of the Dominion. But humans had a different name for it. They called it the day the galaxy learned not to underestimate the little blue world. The primitive species that burned an empire to the ground, and then helped build something better from the ashes. The end."